Uh, Dear respected participants, welcome to today's last section. And this section is going to be moderated by Dr. Alex Atanasov. He is a very good friend of me. He is working at Trakya University Veterinary Faculty in Bulgaria. Dear Dr. Atanasov, welcome. And we are listening to you.
Dear colleagues and dear friend, Professor Lash, first warm greetings from Bulgaria to all of you. And before to start with the session, I would like to thank you, the whole organizing committee of the Second International Congress of Biological and Health Science. And personally of Professor Lash for the kind invitation to be part of this Congress. About me, today it's a great pleasure, of course, and really honored to be a moderator of this session. And like a moderator, I would like to wish to all the presenters successful meeting and fruitful deliberation. If we are ready, we can start with first presentation. It's from Pakistan, entitled "The Brucellosis in the Food Animals of Southern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa," with presenter our colleagues Mohammed Kamal Shah. Maybe the first presenter is not here.
Dear Alex, he's here, but I think he's some problem opening his voice.
Yes. Hujam, Assalamualaikum.
Okay.
Okay.
Hujam, I'm available.
Okay. Now Alex is here.
Evet hocam.
Yes. If you're ready, we can start. You can share your screen. And we are ready for your presentation.
Tamam hocam. Just 1 minute hocam. Screen is hocam, can you see the presentations?
Actually, no. At the moment you share your desktop.
Is it okay now?
Now it's okay. Okay. Thank you.
Respected speakers, conference secretary, Professor Ullas, I'm very thankful to you and the entire conference to invite me for this conference. I have attended several seminar, conferences, workshop abroad in Pakistan. It is one of the best, it's very wonderful, productive seminar, scientific session. So the credit goes to the Afyon Kogatep University and the entire conference administration. Sir, my topic of presentation is the brucellosis in food animal of Southern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan. Next. This is the outline, introduction, objectives, material and methods, results, conclusion, recommendation, and acknowledgement. Next. In Pakistan, livestock contribute approximately 58.3% agriculture and share 11.4% to the national GDP. Sir, our total animal production, animal population is about to 13 million. Majority of our rural population are involved in the livestock sector. About 9 million families are engaged in raising livestock and derive more than 37% income from this sector. This sector play a very major role in the poverty elevation in the country. Now come to the my topic. Brucellosis is important infectious and highly contagious diseases that affect human and various animal species. It carry high significance due to its zoonotic potential across the globe. Its prevalence in all domestic animal and food animal is well documented and recorded in to 15.3% in farm animals in various localities, area zones. In human, its prevalence is about 5 to 17% in Punjab and some other district of the country. Brucellosis is transmitted from diseased animal to human via infected fluid discharge such as blood, vaginal secretion, placental fluid, and aborted fetus. It leads to huge economic losses like reduced productivity, fetal abnormality, abortion, weak cow, temporary or permanent infertility, reduced milk yield, prolonged calving interval, and trade embargo. So third objective of the study is, the study was aimed with the following objectives: to determine seroprevalence in cattle, buffalo, and sheep in southern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan, to investigate the spatial distribution of Brucella species in naturally infected animal of the study area. The third objective is to determine the associated risk factor responsible for brucellosis in food animal. So, material and methods. A total of 600 serum samples were collected from different. It consisted of Tang, Dera Ismail Khan, Banu, and Lucky Marot. Similarly, 150 sample consisted of 50 samples from each animal species were collected from each district. The Rose Bengal test RBPT was used for initial screening, followed by C. ELISA, and the positive sample were further subjected for PCR for molecular confirmation. So this is the sampling sketch area-wise, district, and different animal species, which reflected the total number of samples. This is the study area of southern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan. The area covered in circle. They have the different district. They have adjacent area with the other province of Balochistan, and they also have the adjacent area of Fata, the merge area, and they have the boundary with the Afghanistan, and the Balochistan have adjacent district with the Iran. The data were analyzed, compiled in Microsoft Excel and analyzed through chi-square test for statistical significance. Next, result and discussion. The overall seroprevalence of brucellosis in food animal was 14.1% and 12% to Rose Bengal and competitive ELISA. Out of 85 samples, 15.2% were confirmed for genus Brucella. Among these, 9 samples, 10.5% was detected for Brucella abortus, and 2 samples out of 85 was detected as Brucella militensis. So the Brucella militensis is about 2.3% across the species. This is the species-wise prevalence in the study area across the different region. The buffalo show the highest prevalence of 20%, followed by cattle. The 11% is in cattle, and 2.5% were detected in the sheep. Figure 3 and 4, they represent the initial screening of Rose Bengal. So C1, C2, they represent the cow. B1, B2, and B3, they represent the buffalo sample, accompanied by the positive and negative control. The arrow indicated the positive Rose Bengal sample in the initial screening. So this serum was further investigated through C. ELISA, and the positive sample was subjected for DNA extraction. So this is the PCR confirmation on gel system. So the gel product represent the Brucella abortus and Brucella melitensis with implicant size of 81 base pair and 67 base pair. It is the district-wise prevalence of brucellosis across the species. So the district D Khan, they have represented the prevalence rate is about 15.3%, followed by district Bannu. So D Khan is a very dense area with animal population, especially the buffalo and cattle. Conclusion of the study, the RBPT is helpful for initial screening among suspected animal. So it is very useful test if you are visit some farm, government farm, private farm, or any study or any area or any animal suspected for Brucella. So the RBPT is very helpful for initial screening. PCR is more accurate and confirmative, followed by C. ELISA. So the C. ELISA, due to cross immunity, and of these highly potent, because we conducted the vaccination regularly, but in spite of vaccination, there is regular outbreak in sporadic or in endemic way in various areas, in various provinces of the country. So brucellosis is a big challenge. So it also affects the human population, other animals, food animals, and food products. Next. Acknowledgement. Dear, I am also very thankful to the Higher Education Commission to sponsor this study. I also very thankful my parent institute, Government University Pakistan, that promoted research culture and encouraged faculty to address community and farmer issue in the country. Special thanks to veterinary faculty, food hygiene and technology of Kocatepe University, Turkey, for acceptance and give me the opportunity for this oral presentation. I also very thankful to the conference organizer, especially the Professor Ulas. Thank you for the presentation. And
If you have any questions.
if you that you may ask.
Dear Dr. Kemal, I guess you finish with acknowledgement. Thank you very much for the interesting presentation, especially about me, like the member of the Department of Husbandry in our faculty. It will be very interesting to understand and know something more about the agriculture sector in Pakistan, and especially the number of animals, 200,000 million of animals, and especially high prevalence of this disease. Thank you very much again. If you have any questions, dear colleagues, I would like to ask the Dr. Kemal. No,
Thank you, sir.
very much. Thank you very much again,
Thank you,
dear
sir.
Kemal. Dear colleagues, we'll continue with the next presentation entitled Prophylactic Impact of Nanoselenium on Performance, Carcass Quality, and Tissue Selenium Concentration using Reversed Phase High Performance Liquid Chromatography during Microbial Challenge in Broiler Chickens. With presenter Sam Soliman. Our colleagues, Sam Soliman, is it here? Okay, I will make it last call. In that case, if she is not here, what we will do, we will continue with the third one. And after that, we can turn back and continue at the time when they ready for the presentation. I'm sure that she or our colleague Sam Soliman is here, but maybe have again the technical problems. We'll continue in that case with the third presenters, Shafa Marian, with presentation entitled Evaluation of Physical, Chemical, and Bacteriological Quality of Some Water Sours in Thyroid Region, Algeria.
Dear Dr. Atanasov, the Mariam Jaffa is not available, and we can continue with Dr. Priya. Priya,
Okay.
She is here.
Okay, I announced it before that. We'll continue with the next one when maybe they have some technical problems. When they solve it, we will turn back. It's not the problems. Now it's time for the presentation titled Screening and Isolation of Asparagine Producer from Soil Sours and its Application in Food Products with presenter Priya Sundarajan.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Priya Sundarajan from Mumbai, India. Thank you very much to Professor Ulhas and all the organizer for allowing me to present my data and my work. We're very happy to meet in this international forum. So hope everyone can see my slide and I'm audible. So this is a work which has been done by one of my students, master students, which is screening and isolation of asparaginous producers from soil source and having an application in food products. So just to introduce the topic, the acrylamide, which is a chemical that actually arises in food, and all food materials are subjected to very high temperatures during cooking. It's mainly a reaction between the amino acid asparagine as well as the sugars, which is called as the Maillard reaction. So the presence of asparagine was discovered only in maybe 2002, and later on it was recognized as a carcinogenic agent, and which is normally present in food substances which are subjected to very, very high temperatures. Many of our food substances like potato chips or any of those fried nuggets have very high amount of acrylamide, and which was not known for a long time that this was one of the carcinogenic factors which may lead to cancer in many individuals. So this enzyme asparaginase can be used to break down the asparagine to aspartate, and hence the acrylamide formation can be reduced. So that's the idea of using asparaginase in food products. So if you're looking at the sources of asparaginase, there are many sources like bacteria, fungi, molds, plants, and yeast. But we all know that microorganisms are a very good source. And for large-scale production, for commercial production, microorganisms are one of the best which can be used and easy for manipulation in terms of mutagenesis and so on. So overall, the aim and objectives of this present work was to isolate asparaginase producers from various sources. So my student used soil source and maybe even water source, and to check the activity of asparaginase, do a biochemical profile of the organisms, and to determine the activity of the asparaginase. Finally, this asparaginase, which has been isolated, to be used in some food products and to see whether the levels of acrylamide, that means in terms of levels of asparagine, can be reduced so that the formation of acrylamide can be prevented when these food products are heated up, especially something like a potato nugget or a smiley, which is very commonly eaten by, which is very commonly liked by small children, as well as adults. So the methodology involved, so using a soil source, making a suspension of the soil and spreading it out on nutrient agar plates. And after getting what we call as many number of colonies, you pick up specific colonies and specifically isolate them, and then plate it out on specific media, which is M9 media containing phenol red. So the idea of using phenol red is when you have asparagine, which is released, it converts the media into an alkaline media, and the phenol red turns pink in color. And we will be able to identify those which are producing asparagines. So after 36 colonies, there were 10 colonies which were picked up, which showed this particular aspect of converting the M9 media with phenol red into pink color. I'll show that when we do the results. Moving on to further work characterization of the asparaginase, we did the qualitative as well as quantitative assay. That means the assay for the enzyme, and also checked the growth profile of these organisms at varied temperature and varied pH, so that in case we have to use these enzymes in an industrial scenario, it should be more rugged and more suitable in varied temperatures and pH. And also a biochemical profile on very different differential media was carried out to identify what is the main organism. Following this, the activity of the asparaginase was being carried out. So here we had ammonium sulfate, which is being used as the standard, because when asparaginase works on asparagine, it releases ammonia, and it is the ammonia which is detected. So that Nestler's, by using Nestler's reagent, the amount of ammonia was detected, but release was detected. And that's how the activity of asparaginase in the various isolates which were released was identified. And this asparaginase which was identified, which was isolated, was then used for treatment of potato smileys, because potato smileys is a very favorite food for children as well as adults. And it is very commonly consumed by different populations. So here we are looking at treatment of the potato smiley and then checking whether the levels of asparagine is reduced in the asparagine treated samples. So that's overall is the methodology. Moving on to the results. So like I've already mentioned, we had around 36 colonies which were isolated from the soil, and which were all streaked out on nutrient agar plates as well as M9 media containing phenol red. And from that, we identified that there were about 10 colonies which showed a very good change in color of the phenol red to pink in color. So these 10 colonies were then isolated and were then named in different names that were given. And from these colonies, qualitative as well as quantitative assay and enzyme assay was being performed. So here is a plate which is showing all the 10 isolates on M9 media containing phenol red. So we can see that the phenol red has completely changed its color. Just to confirm that it's not an artifact, we put these colonies, the isolates and extracts from these colonies as a qualitative test on M9 media containing phenol red. So these are the isolates, and on the right-hand side is the control, which like E. coli, which does not produce much of asparaginase. So it's very evident that there is asparaginase produced, and the phenol red is converted to pink in color, and hence indicating that these are asparaginase producers. So confirming that the 10 colonies that we picked up from the grid are asparaginase producers, we further went on to do the temperature optima, pH optima, and determine the various colony characteristics. And all of them were found to be gram-negative cocobacilli, which is the gram staining, which is shown here, and the colony characteristics, which are given in this particular slide. Moving on to the quantitative assay. So there were 4 colonies which showed, 4 of those isolates which showed very good conversion of the phenol red, that means a dark coloration, indicating that they may be producing higher amount of asparaginase. So these are the ones which were taken, and then an assay for asparaginase was carried out. So which showed that a very high absorbance was released by the Nestler's method, confirming that all these are asparaginase producers. So this the colony profile, which has been shown here for the 4 colonies which were isolated, is given in the figure that is given below. So continuing with the further characterization of these colonies were then checked for whether they can grow in varied temperature. What is the temperature optima in which they can grow? So temperature from 5 degrees to 65 degrees where they were subjected to for a period of 24 hours as well as 48 hours. And the results showed that very clearly that 37 degrees was at which these colonies grew best. And the next temperature was 23 degrees, both in 24 hours and 48 hours. And in other temperatures, for example, in 5 degrees, there was hardly any growth. And at higher temperatures, there were no growth at all, indicating that the preferred temperature, the optimum temperature of growth for these colonies being 37 degrees Celsius, maybe 23 degrees Celsius when with a prolonged extended period of time, which is 48 hours. Moving on to checking out whether these organisms isolated were able to grow in varied pH conditions. So we moved on from a pilot experiment from acidic to alkaline conditions, and then between 24 hours and 48 hours, it's observed that pH 7 is the one in which these colonies grow best, followed by at pH 10, because these are able to grow in alkaline conditions also, but they do not prefer acidic conditions, hence because we did not see any growth at pH 4, both at 24 hours as well as a slight growth in 48 hours. So indicating that pH 7 followed by pH 10 is what these colonies best grow at, and maybe the optimum pH for growth is 7, and the optimum temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. So there was a biochemical profile in varied differential media which was being carried out, for example, like McConkey, XLD, ACAR, and so on. And it was found that culture identification was given to different into laboratory, and it was found that all the colonies which were isolated were probably Pseudomonas putida based on biochemical profile. So this is the results that we obtained on McConkey and XLD plates, indicating that these are not E. coli or Salmonella, and confirming by biochemical identification that they most probably could be belonging to Pseudomonas. And by outsourcing it to a lab which identifies the organisms, it was found to be Pseudomonas. We did the enzyme assay from the isolates, using the supernatant as the broth. So we grew the cultures, centrifuged it, and used the crude extract as an enzyme source, and ammonium sulfate was used as the standard. So we know that when asparaginase works converts on asparagine, it breaks it down and converts it into aspartate and releases ammonia. And this ammonia can be detected by the Nessler's method. So here is shown the standard graph that we used and the activity which was shown by the 4 cultures which were showed promising results for asparaginase production. And it was found that there were enzyme activities which were found in these 4 cultures, and the maximum being of this culture which we named as culture 11. 11 being, it was the 11th culture in the grid that we had plotted. Moving on to applications. So this crude enzyme, which was taken from these cultures, were then used, the potato smileys were treated with them. And then it was shown that whether asparagine content is reduced. So here is a TLC, which is shown. We also did a TLC after treatment. And these are the untreated plates. That means potato smileys, which were not treated at all, followed by plates which were treated from the various culture isolates. And it was shown that this culture 11, which shows the presence of aspartate, which indicating that the asparagine is being degraded to aspartate with the release of ammonia. And hence, it will, when these smileys are being fried, then the levels of asparagine being less will prevent the formation of acrylamide, which is actually a carcinogen. So then these food products will then be safer when compared to those which have not been treated with asparaginase. So overall, to summarize and to conclude, so we need, since acrylamide is a carcinogen, it is better to prevent the formation of acrylamide in foods which are fried at very high temperature. And these foodstuffs are very commonly eaten. So after this particular study, from the 36 isolates, we had 10 colonies which were showing asparagine producers. And we did qualitative as well as quantitative assays, of which 4 cultures were found to be the best in production of asparaginase. These cultures showed a very highest growth at 37 degrees Celsius and a pH of 7. And that means these are the optimum conditions for the growth of these organisms. And the isolate 11 showed the highest enzyme activity for asparaginase. And when treated with potato smileys, when subjected to the asparaginase, which has been isolated from these cultures, it was found that there was conversion of asparagine to aspartate, which was also confirmed by TLC, indicating that the levels of acrylamide will be less in these foodstuffs, which are then, if it is being fried at a very high temperature. So the further studies, of course, need to be done for more characterization and purification of the enzyme. But this is a small study which I would like to present, and these are the references which we have used. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you to the organizers for allowing me to present my work.
Dear Dr. Priya, thank you very much for your presentation. It's not also the interesting, but it's very useful for the food industry, especially the using of these crude enzymes. Thank you very much again. And now it's time for questions. The auditory, if you have any questions. No? Thank you very much again. Now we'll continue with the next presentation. The number 5, entitled Evaluation of Carcass of Cattle Slaughtered in Winter in Kırıkkale Province according to slaughterhouse data, with presenter Cansu Ateş.
Hi,
Hi, dear colleague.
I am ready.
Okay, you can share your screen and start with your presentation.
Today, I will share with you some findings that might be important in terms of livestock sector planning in Kırıkkale province in Turkey. Our presentation topic is the evaluation of bovine carcass slaughter in winter Kırıkkale province in Turkey. Introduction, when the basic food source required for a healthy and balanced diet of people in the world are considered foods of plants and animal origin come to the mind. In terms of excess protein among animal foods come to the fore among these foodstuffs. In addition, when to deficiency in red meat production, production is taken in account according to rapidly increasing population. Contrary to this situation in Turkey, it is reported that plant-based nutrition meets a higher percentage of daily protein needs. A large percentage of the daily protein amount consumed in developed countries is obtained from animal food.
Sorry, dear colleague, but the slides of your presentation doesn't change. It stays in the title in the first.
Okay. Contrary to this situation in Turkey, reported nutrition meat a higher percentage of daily protein. A large percentage of the daily protein amount consumed in developed countries is obtained from animal foods. Are more than half of the total agricultural income is made from animals and animal products in these countries. In addition to production,
sorry, again, it's staying the first slide. Just start to your slideshow.
Yes, baştan şuradan. Okay.
No, and the same. It's stated in the title page with title and affiliation.
It's not opening. I don't know.
Okay, you can try to, okay, you
Okay.
can continue manual to change the slides in that case if it doesn't work your slideshow. Sorry for that. You can continue.
Okay. Şuradan devam edeyim. According to 2018 data, red meat in Turkey was estimated as approximately 1.2 million tons, and per capita consumption of red meat was reported in 13.6 kilograms. Slaughter methods applied during the slaughter of butchery animals and the processes applied after slaughter also have a significant effect on the carcass quality. In addition, slaughtering in butchers cattle in accordance with the rules is closely related to the cattle breeding. Cattle rigging slaughter rights are offered for sale on the basis of carcass weight, not live rights. In Turkey, cattle slaughtering is carried out in food difference system, meat and fish combination, municipal slaughterhouse, private sector combinations, and uncontrolled slaughter. Among these public and private sector combinations are establishments where technological innovation are applied and almost everything of slaughtered animals is used. In this study, it was aimed to determine the current station of the cattle sent to slaughter in winter in the slaughterhouse, where most of the cattle are slaughtered in Kırıkkale, to reveal some slaughter and carcass characteristic or semental male cattle slaughters at 16 or 18 months of age. With the Acrylamide study, it is thought that by revealing the potential Kırıkkale provides in terms of cattle slaughters and carcass characteristics, outputs that will provide positive contribution for future have been obtained. According to the Turkish Statistical Institute 2018 data, the total number of cattle in Turkey was stated approximately 18 million, while in Kırıkkale province this number was reported approximately 80,000. Looking at the result, 0.43% of the current number of cattle found in Turkey is the number cattle found in Kırıkkale. Introduction, let's look at the graphic. In recent years, there has been a significant increase in the presence of hybrid animals in direct proportion to the increase in presence of cattle of the cultural breed in Kırıkkale province. As a result of the crossbreeding of high-yield cultural breeds with native breeds and artificial insemination practice, there is an increase in the value of the animals and animal products. Keskin district, the largest district of the province, has the most cattle as a split percentage 28. Others are expected as city center percentage 22, Delice percentage 10, Balışehir percentage 20, 16, third. Look at the table introduction. Bahçeli has 418 cimental hybrids. Bahçeli has 153 cimental hybrid male, and Bahçeli has 224 cimental, and Bahçeli has 65 cimental male. Introduction has Kırıkkale has increased fatting cattle breeding in recent years. Fat cattle are shipped both to meat processed plants in the surrounding province or sold as sacrifices in the local and other provinces. Cattle, especially brought from abroad for fattening purpose, are preferred by breeders due to high yield and lack of Sunday shortage. In Kırıkkale province, which is located in Central Anatolia region, there is not much variety of herbal products. In the province, in this seen that the sector with the highest return for agricultural income is the livestock sector. Local trends, low risks, and more stable income levels indicate that red meat production is the most stable livestock sector for the province. The research was carried out in meat combination operated by the private sector opening in Kırıkkale province. Prior to study, a preliminary study of information collection was conducted in Kırıkkale province. Slaughterhouses where cattle were slaughtered regularly were identified and business officials were interviewed about the study. December-February 2019 year to 2020 in the special meat combination that routinely slaughters cattle in Kırıkkale province. In the study, the race, age, and danger status of the animals in the routinely slaughtering during the 3-month period during the winter season. Results, in this table, we can see the data of the cattle slaughtered in winter according to race, gender, and age. According to the data in this table is finally detailed results. 19 December, cimental and cimental hybrid percentage approximately 97, Holstein approximately 2, yerli kara percentage 1, other 0.15. 2020 January, cimental and cimental hybrid approximately 96%, Holstein 2.3. 2020 February, cimental and cimental hybrid approximately 96%, Holstein approximately 2%. Age to age 0 and 15 months. 2019 December 25, 2020 January, approximately 25, 2020 February, 25. Age 15, 18 months, 2019 December, approximately 55, approximately percentage, 2020 January in the approximately 55, 2020 February, approximately 55. Result, male and female, 2019 December, approximately 99%, 2020 January, same, 2020 February, same. Conclusion, the aim of the study is the evaluation of the recourse of the space and meat combination in the winter season, where most of cattle cuts-off were made in Kırıkkale province, and it is believed that important outputs were obtained in Kırıkkale province for this purpose. In the study, it was determined that a large part of cattle set to slaughter in Kırıkkale province consisted of cattle of cultural race. Among them, the Simmental race had a significant surplus in number. In addition, fattening enterprise in the name of providing economic impact, conclusively keeping male animals in their enterprise and sending them to slaughter, paying attention to the age of physical maturity of the animals, it also considered to be very important and positive station for provincial animal husbandry. Again, according to slaughterhouse records, it was also found that quite high rates of male animal slaughters took place in Kırıkkale province. More than half of animals sent to slaughters were found to be in the age December 15-18 months. Approached from this angle, it is important that the study reflects the potential of Kırıkkale province of cattle owner. However, in the sense that would include more comprehensive reviews of this research to be done, especially in the economic potential in the context of fully revealing Kırıkkale province in expected to provide benefits to our country livestock. Thanks for your interest.
Dear Cansu Ateş, thank you very much for your presentation and interesting date that you share with us, especially for the slaughter system in your country and the breed, Simmental hybrid, Holstein, and another that is slaughtered in Anatolia side of Turkey. Thank you very much. And now it's time for question. Dear colleagues, if you have any question to Cansel. Actually, we haven't. Thank you very much again, Cansel. And now, dear colleague, we will continue with the next presentation entitled Determination of Sensory and Antioxidant Properties of Black and Power Tea Frequently Consumed in Şanlıurfa, Different Brewing Times, with author Kasım Takım and Mehmet Emin Aydemir, who is the presenter of this.
Hello everybody. Hi, hello everybody. I am Mehmet Emin Aydemir. I'm working at Harran University, Şanlıurfa, in Turkey. In this presentation, properties of black imported tea frequently consumed in Şanlıurfa, the different brewing times. Tea is an aromatic drink made by pouring hot or boiling water on the dried leaves obtained from the plant known as Camellia sinensis. After water, the tea is one of the most important drinks in the world. White history of 500 years and reported to the during by approximately 2/3 of global population. In study from the England, American and Germany, it was shown that 30% and 40% of the participants drank 2-3 cups of tea per day. The tea plantations are with the spread, and the production is intense in India, China, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Kenya, Turkey, and Japan, with 18% of the world tea produced in these countries. In your country, in the Eastern Black Sea region, teas and imported teas are consumed. Imported teas, which are frequently consumed, especially in the Southeast, originated from Sri Lanka. It is loved and consumed by the people. The polyphenols found in the tea plant have antioxidant, antimicrobial, anti-cancer, anti-inflammation, and antiviral effects on the human health. Benefits have also been reported of lowering cholesterol, blood pressure, and the risk of cardiovascular disease, and reducing the risk of osteoporotic fractures in the elderly. The chemical composition of the teas can also vary dependent on the particle size of the tea used, the brewing combination, brewing time, brewing temperature, extraction amount, number of extractions, extraction to light. Purpose, the aim of the study is to determine the sensory and antioxidant properties of imported black tea, which is lowering consumed by the public in Şanlıurfa, Turkey, at different brewing times. Materials and methods. The taste sample was obtained from the market in Şanlıurfa. The taste sample was brewing at the rate of 1.5. The sample were performed after 50, 30, and 60 minutes of brewing. Analysis of total phenolic, total flavonoid, antioxidant activity, and color-wise of the time sample was performed. Total phenolic substance, the following chocolate method, total flavonoid substance, aluminum chloride chromatic method, antioxidant activity, DPPH, and ABTS radical. Color-wise, color measurement were color portable digital colorimeter. The color characteristic of the T, L, A, and B parameters were determined. Statistic analysis, ANOVA and Duncan test, SPSS version program. You see analysis, color analysis, the PPH analysis, ABTS analysis. Results, you see table. It was observation that there was a significant increases and total phenolic and total flavonoid substance amounts of the tea sample during the brewing period. You see table in the antioxidant activity of the tea sample. It was observation that the PPH and ABTC as radical increasing significantly in parallel with increasing the concentration amount. In addition, the Higgs, the PPH and ABTS observed in 60 minutes brewing times. In a caloric analysis of the T sample, it was observation that L and B values increasing for 30 minutes during breathing, but decrease it again for 60 minutes. A value increasing during the breathing period, and it is while it decreased for 30 minutes and increasing again for 60 minutes. You see table. It was observation that that there was a positive correlation between total phenolic substance and A and B well, and a negative correlation between L well. It was observation that there was a positive correlation between total flavonoid substance and L and B values, and a negative correlation value. As a result, it has been concluded that imported tea, which is frequently preferred by the people in Şanlıurfa province, has high antioxidant activity, and the prolonging the breathing times has a positive effect on the sensory and antioxidant properties of this tea. Thank you very much.
Dear Mehmet Emin Aydemir, thank you very much for your presentation. Especially, it's a little bit far from my topics, animal husbandry, but it's interesting for someone who like to drink the tea. Thank you very much again. It's very interesting, useful information. Now it's time for a question. Again, if auditory have question to our colleague from Halam University. Actually, no. Thank you very much again. Now we will continue with the next presentation entitled "The Effect of Water Kefir on Rainbow Trout, Meat Quality and Some Foodborne Pathogens and Spoilage Bacteria," with presenter Emre Yavuzer.
Thank you very much. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But
good evening.
before you start, before you start, if it's possible to open the slideshow, or because it's the title page.
Okay. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Good evening, everyone.
You're welcome.
I am Dr. Emre Yavuzer, Kırşehir Ahevran University, Faculty of Engineering and Architecture. Our study is the effect of water kefir on rainbow trout meat quality and some foodborne pathogen and spoilage bacteria. Okay, I want to close this. I'm sorry. Okay. This study actually was carried out spontaneously in a rainbow trout farm, based on the increase in the number of deaths due to the Aeromonas hydrophila bacteria. Aeromonas hydrophila, we know that pathogen bacteria on trouts. Since the bacteria isolated from the farm developed resistance to various antibiotics such as neonicotine, fluorphenicol, and natural antimicrobials that could be used in the trout feed were tested by the disc diffusion method. The addition of water kefir to the feed for a period of 4 weeks reduced the mortality to 0 due to its high inhibition effect on Aeromonas hydrophylla. In addition, the antimicrobial effects of water kefir were tested on 1 foodborne pathogens and 5 fish spoilage bacteria through the disk diffusion method. Also, fish meat whose good microbiota was enriched with water kefir was analyzed in terms of protein, fat, and free fatty acid levels. Water kefir, unlike milk kefir, water kefir is a carbonated, low alcohol beverage fermented by sucrose, lactobacillus species, constitute an important part of the water kefir microorganisms. The lactic acid bacteria, acetic acid bacteria, and yeast live harmoniously. Only kefir yeast and milk are reduced to produce milk kefir. However, water kefir requires the addition of water, sugar, and dried fruit in addition to the yeast. We know that kefir is an important source of probiotic with a creamy nature as well as a sour, acidic, and refreshing taste. Water kefir is generally rich in microorganisms of lactococcus such as lactobacillus, leuconostoc, azotobacter, streptococcus, and etc. Kefir is known to reduce the accumulation of fat in the body and exhibit antioxidant, antimicrobial, and anti-cancer effects. In the study, the kefir used was obtained from my local company in Turkey, Isparta. The fermentation of the water kefir was completed in 36 hours using 20 grams of sugar, 950 milliliters of water, half a slice of lemon, and 10 raisins. Raisins means grapes, dry grapes, per 1 liter at room temperature. In addition to the cost of kefir yeast and water, 11.2 kilogram of water, granulated sugar, 50 kilograms of lemon, and 1 kilogram of raisins were consumed during the study. And isolation of Aeromonas hydrophylla, fish groups from which Aeromonas hydrophylla was isolated are seen in the picture. Some tests such as oxidase, catalase, gram staining, microscopic morphology and motility tests were performed for the colonies obtained by cultivating the fish samples brought to Kırşehir Ahiralan University Department of Food Engineering with McCounter agar, bullet agar, and TSPS agar for the isolation of Aeromonas hydrophylla. And here is the image from the facility, tourist facility, and fish where the study. Here is the Hirfanlı Dam of Kırşehir. Hirfanlı Dam is very big dam, and in here there are lots of fish facilities. And fish materials during the study, the water kefir was added to the feed as 1 liter kefir to 2 kilograms feed on daily basis during a period of 4 weeks. Control group 2 of the hatchery pools with dimensions of 4.5 plus 1 meter for used in the same facility. And biochemical composition analysis, the total crude protein analysis was performed according to Keldal method. Lipid analysis was performed according to method of Blight and Dyer, and the crude ash analysis was performed according to the AOAC. Fatty acid analysis performed by the Ihbara et al. Tested bacteria were isolated from spoiled fish, were obtained from the University of Çukurova, Faculty of Fisheries in Adana. This diffusion method performed according to the method of Murray et al. And determination of minimum inhibitory and bactericidal concentration performed according to the clinical and laboratory standards institutes methods. When we look at the results in the Aeromonas hydrophylla strain that was isolated from a trout farms in Kırşehir, Turkey, had an inhibition zone of 5.01 millimeters on tetracycline, while it was resistant to streptomycin and neomycin. On the other hand, water kefir created a zone of 12.23 millimeter on Aeromonas hydrophylla. Antibacterial growth was prevented with a dosage of 12.1 milligram per milliliter minimum inhibition concentration. The bactericidal effect of water kefir was the strongest with the Aeromonas hydrophylla, which was followed by Pseudomonas luteola and Enterobacter chlorosi. Despite the fact that Proteus mirabilis is known to be a gram-negative bacterium causing disease, the strain used in the study showed distributed properties in fish storage and is preserved as a fish-borne spoilage bacteria, isolated in the aquaculture department of Çukurova University. The water kefir formed a 14.91 millimeter zone on the bacteria, and water kefir had a 8.30 millimeter inhibition zone against Enterobacter chlorosi, which wasn't resistant to any of the control antibiotics used in the study. Table 2 presents the nutritional value of rainbow throat fat on additional water kefir compared to the control group. In the study, the addition of water kefir to the feed didn't cause a significant difference in protein and moisture levels. However, the fat level of water kefir group was found to be significantly lower compared to the control group. Previous studies have demonstrated that kefir eliminated the effect of high-fat diet, improved the serum lipid profile, and improved the fatty acid metabolism significantly. Percent as a mean value of 26 fatty acids for two groups. The fatty acid compositions of water kefir and control group ranged from 22% to 29% saturated fatty acids, 40.45 to unsaturated fatty acid, and 30.59 to 31.73% polyunsaturated fatty acids. We know that saturated fatty acids are oils that are solid at room temperature. They are considered to raise bad cholesterol, which call it low density lipoprotein, thus increasing the risk of coronary heart disease. In addition, recent studies have reported the association of saturated fatty acid with hypertension. In the present study, the lowest saturated fatty acid ratio was seen in water kefir group. Further, the amount of palmitic acid of the water kefir group was significantly lower than control. Oleic acid is very important monounsaturated fatty acids. Was the primary monounsaturated fatty acid, accounting for 32.65% of total MUFAs for the water kefir, while it contributes 28 of total monounsaturated fatty acids of control group. In the study, there was no significant difference between the groups in terms of linoleic acid and linoleic acid. However, the EPA and DHA ratios were found to be significantly higher in the water kefir group. The findings obtained in the study examining the effects of strengthening the good microbiota of the throat with water kefir have demonstrated that water kefir provided a low-cost solution against important pathogen known as Aeromonas hydrophila and some fish spoilage bacteria that acquired antibiotic resistance. Besides, it didn't impair meat quality and had a positive effect on fatty acid quality. In addition, water kefir has a nature that doesn't impair water quality when added to the throat feed. Therefore, the effect of adding water kefir to the ambient water of fish in the larval stage must be examined in the future studies. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emre Yavuzar.
Thank you too.
For the interesting presentation and different point of view. How can we use it, the water kefir, especially of treatment of some health problem in the fish. Questions, dear colleagues from the auditory, do you have any questions to Dr. Emre Yavuzar? I couldn't see In that case, thank you very much again, and I wish you success in the next study with.
Thank you too.
Now, dear colleagues, we'll continue with colleagues from Morocco and their presentation entitled Spatial and Temporal Variation of Vessel Pollution Indicators in the Duality Lagoon in Shellfish Growing Area in Morocco, with presenter Najwa Hassol.
Hi.
Hello and welcome to our session. When you're ready, you can start.
D'accord. Thank you. Thank you, moderator, ladies and gentlemen, honorable audience. I have the honor to present my research work entitled Spatial and Temporal Variation of Fecal Pollution Indicator in Duality Lagoon, a shellfish growing area in Morocco. After a brief introduction to lagoons and lagoon ecosystems, I will present the choice of Duality Lagoon as the study area.
Colleagues, sorry, but first, if it's possible to share your screen with us.
You can't see the power?
No, actually, maybe
because I have problem with cam.
Okay, now it's okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I'm very sorry. After a brief introduction, the lagoons and lagoon ecosystems, I will present the choice of Duality Lagoon as the study area, the issues and problems concerning this lagoon, as well as the objectives of our study. Then I will present the methodology adopted to meet the objectives, followed by the main results of my work, and I will end with a general conclusion. First of all, what is a lagoon? It's a shallow coastal water body separated from the sea by a coastal strip, fed by seawater through one or more openings, fed by fresh continental water. The choice of Duality Lagoon was motivated by the fact that it's among the most important coastal ecosystems on the Morocco Atlantic coast. It's considered a site of ecological and biological interest, SIBE, and is listed a Ramsar site. From the socioeconomic point of view, the Lagoon of Walidia offers significant natural resources and it's heavily exploited by human activity, such as oyster farming, agriculture, self-production, grazing, and tourism. These advantages constitute the same time research on the balance in this lagoon, making this ecosystem more and more vulnerable. The Walidia Lagoon is located on the Moroccan Atlantic coast between Safi and El Jadida city. It's part of an area of 7 kilometers long and 0.4 to 0.5 kilometers wide. The Walidia Lagoon is divided into 3 main parts. A main pass about 115 meters wide and a secondary pass of 15 meters. Side channel of a maximum of 1 to 1.5 meters depends, connected to a principal main channel in which the main depth is 2 meters and the maximum depth during flow tide does not exceed 5 to 6. An artificial dam there are no river discharging into the lagoon. The flow oriented parallel to the axis of the channel reaches 0.31 meter per second. Tide is semi-diurnal tide. The objectives of this study are to assess the risks of lagoon pollution caused by land uses in the watershed, to identify the origin of polluting inputs, to determine the dynamics of the watershed in terms of the cycle of inputs of pollutants and quantify their flow, to link the dysfunctions observed in the Duality Lagoon with the pollutant inputs assessed on the watershed. To achieve this objective, we have adopted the following methodology. We proceeded to the delimitation of the study area, followed by the establishment of map of land use. For it, in the first of all, we started by creating a database using field trips, topomap, and aerial photos. The delimitation of the topographic watershed was carried out using the digital train model, which only takes into account a rainfall and not the pips of the urban network. The analysis of area image and photograph enabled us to establish a land use map of the Walidia watershed according to category land 3 of core land cover. The land cover map has highlighted thematic class: urban area, forests, grassland, permanent cultivation, arable lands, and wet surface. The identification of the watershed of the Walidia Lagoon made it possible to be divided into two zones. Zone 1, around the lagoon with a direct influence by leaching and rainfall. Zone 2, having an indirect influence by infiltration groundwater. The sampling point concerned 10 lagoons water sampling, representative of the entire lagoon. The lagoon water sample were subjected to in situ physicochemical analysis, meaning temperature, pH, salinity, and turbidity, and laboratory analysis. These are the microbiological parameters, E. coli, and fecal streptococcus. Now, I will present the main results obtained. Water temperature and pH measurements showed that the temperature has a seasonal and spatial evolution. Summer and autumn are characterized by a gradual warming. Unlike winter and spring, where the water are cooler, below 20. The pH is alkaline for all the station, which is explained by the marine influence. Regarding salinity, it flows and decreasing downstream, upstream gradient. The lowest value recorded in the summer seasons upstream of the lagoon are explained by the groundwater discharging during these seasons. For the turbidity of water of the lagoon, it's generally higher during the dry season downstream of the lagoon. On the other hand, in the rainy period, it's higher upstream of the lagoon. This shows that the turbidity generated by tourist activity is greater than that caused by rainfall inputs. The spatial distribution of E. coli show a high concentration downstream of the lagoon in the summer period, corresponding to high tourist and oyster farming activity. Indeed, the total population of the center of Florida exceed 39,000. However, the rest of the year, it does not exceed 6,500 people. During the rainy period, pollution is added upstream and in the center of lagoon, following the leaching of manure and livestock waste. For fecal streptococci, during the dry period, the concentration is high downstream and moderate in the middle of the lagoon due to tourism, animal orgasm, and oyster farming. Unlike the rainy period, when high concentration are recorded upstream and in the middle of the lagoon. At the end of our study, the following conclusion can be made. Proven impacts of the different land use at the level of the watershed on the flow of pollution to the lagoon. The major source of fecal contamination, E. coli and streptococci of the lagoon and underground watershed is grazing, as well as the spreading of manure of agriculture plots. Clear link between land use and microbiological and physicochemical parameters, particularly during period of fertilizer and manure spreading. E. coli pollution linked to urban activities downstream of the lagoon in the summer periods. Consequently, two types of pollution in the Duality Lagoon: urban pollution and agricultural pollution. For urban pollution, it's concentrated downstream of the lagoon and the watershed, which is due to the intense tourist activity in summer. For agricultural pollution, it concentrated upstream of the lagoon and watershed, which is due to leaching and infiltration from agricultural practices around the lagoon in the rainy seasons. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation and the information that you share with us, especially for lagoon in Morocco. The auditory, do you have any question? At that time, I will check the chat. Actually, for the previous presentation, we have the question. For the moment, no. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
1 second. Dr. Hasso, I'm very happy to be able to follow this presentation. It's a very interesting work. Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, we'll continue the program with next presentation entitled Pharmacological Protocols in Therapeutic Treatment in Vestibular Syndrome in Pet Animals, with presenter Erinda Lika. One comment more for the previous presentation from Dr. Ovay Sömer, nicely presented. Thank you very much, dear professor, for your comments. And now our colleagues from University in Tirana, Albania. Okay, dear colleague, if you're ready, you can start with your presentation. We see your screen.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, yes, we are here.
Okay, hello again. Thank you to Professor Ulas. Thank you, dear Chairman, for allowing me to make this presentation. Actually, there are two presentations after the other. I will be the person who is going to present them. And because it is the end of the day and the end of the session, I will try to be brief and very conspective. So the first presentation is about the medical treatment in different cases of glaucoma in dogs. As we might know, the glaucoma is one of the most dangerous ocular disease in animals. I don't know why it is not, I'm not passing to the next slide. Just a moment. Okay.
Okay, is what?
Okay, now it's okay. So it is a common disease for the pet animals and especially for dogs, and it is caused because of the increase of intraocular pressure. And what it causes, the most dangerous thing, is the damage of the optic nerve. That's why it is called also optic neuropathy, which leads in the loss of the vision and which is one of the irreversible blindness. So what causes actually the glaucoma? This is a morphological change in the part of zonulus and in the part of iridocorneal angle, which makes that the ocular humor that it is produced in the anterior chamber do not allow to flow out. What it causes, the increase of intraocular pressure, and what causes the damage of the intraocular structures. As you can see in the scheme, which is presented in the slide, you can see the normal eye, the normal shape of the morphological structure of the eye, and the eye with glaucoma, where the intraocular pressure make the pressure to the structures that are exactly the lens, the iris, and what it is most dangerous, the pressure that it causes it to retina. And phase by phase and stage by stage, it causes also the permanent damage of the retina. Here are some views of the optic nerve that you can see in a normal stage, and you can see in the phases in the advanced glaucoma. And with the damage of the optic nerves comes also the loss of the view. And as you can see, phase after phase, the view is quite well when the optic nerve is quite normal, and the view starts to be partial when the damage of the retina starts to aggravate with the increase of the intraocular pressure. What it is happens normally in chronic glaucoma. So the classification of this pathology is based in two types of it. So traditional classification and modern classification. The first one is based on etiology, and it is based on primary and secondary glaucoma, which are the most frequent cases that we have had, like uveitis, cataract, traumatic, ocular, and luxation. All of these leads to glaucoma. And the second one are modern classification according to the age of onset and pathogenesis as well. So according to the age of onset, it could be in the infantile or juvenile or adult onset, and according to pathogenesis, it could be congenital or acquired. while the classification according to the anatomy or differences in morphological point of view of anterior chamber, it could be open angle glaucoma or closed angle glaucoma. So the question is, how is the frequency of primary or secondary glaucoma comparing with the frequency of acute chronic glaucoma? How is the frequency of the disease according gender, age, and breed? How is the predisposition of this disease according to these factors? And what about the medical treatment in different type of glaucoma, which is actually also our study? To make a good treatment, first we should make a good examination to achieve a perfect diagnosis. And to come in a perfect diagnosis, we should follow the ophthalmic algorithm, which starts with a procedure, with a simple procedure by ophthalmoscope. And according to the clinical signs that we can observe, it can go on with special diagnostic like using tonometer, shimmer tests, and fluorescein tests for detecting the parts of the amount of tears that could be lower or could be under the normal line, and the fluorescein test that could detect the presence of corneal ulcers that could be part of the syndrome of glaucoma in the secondary cases when the glaucoma comes from uveitis and so on. And during the special examination, the parameters that we should measure are the pupillary reflex, the dorsal reflex, and the vision function. Because according to the grades of these parameters, we can make the prognostic phase. So we can divide in the glaucoma that have favorable prognostic signs for vision and in glaucoma that are unfavorable prognostic signs for vision. So these are some of the views of the measurements of pupillary reflex, of Schirmer tear test for measuring the quantity of the tears, which detects the presence of some ocular disease like is keratoconjunctivitis sicca, which can lead also in the glaucoma, and it can be contribute in the secondary glaucoma. Fluorescein dye test, which can detect the presence of corneal ulcer, and also what it is final and most important for this diagnosis is tonometer test, which measures directly the level of the intraocular pressure. And which are, in this case, the goal of medical therapy for treatment of glaucoma. There are two mechanisms that we should control to prevent this disease, not to cure when it is advanced or when it is became chronic, and especially in the cases when the optic nerve is damaged. But when it is in acute phases and when the optic nerve is not damaged yet. So the mechanism that we should control is the decrease of intraocular pressure by shrinking the intraocular volume and the decrease of aqueous production using irrespectively mannitol and also timolol. So in this case, we can also control the aqueous outflow by inducing increase or reducing its increase. So according to the cases that we have had, we have made the separation of the types of glaucoma according to the phase of its onset and according to the cause of it. So we have divided in primary cases of glaucoma, secondary cases, acute and chronic cases. And as you can see from the table, the most frequent one are the secondary glaucoma. Also, one of the parameters that we have measured in these cases is also the gender, the age and the gender. This graphic shows that the most frequented one as the female gender. Even there are no other studies that proves this, but this is our previous results. And also the frequency of glaucoma according to age, what it was the result that the age from 10 to 14 years old are the most predisposed one. This because the loss of regeneration of the ocular structures, maybe, or this because the parts of the intervention, surgical intervention, does not end successfully. Also, the frequency according to the breeds, you can see that the mixed breed are the most predisposed one, maybe because the big number of the cases comes from the stray dogs, and the stray dogs that we have in our country are mostly of the mixed breeds. And maybe because this pathology is not diagnosed in its early stages, that's why the reason that these stray dogs came by us with very aggravated form of glaucoma. So come to the point of our study, the pharmacological therapeutic that we have followed in different cases was according to the use of local treatment, systemic treatment, and also compared local and systemic treatment using respectively timolol with 5%, neptazan, and also the combination of cosop-neptazan and mannitol. And as you can see, the most successful cases are those when we have used the combination of local treatment and general systemic treatment. In a conclusion, from the clinical point of view and from the clinical pharmacotherapy, we can say that in acute glaucoma, the wounds, when it can be seen, it's usually normal. What means that in this stage we are lucky, and in this stage also the patients are lucky, and we can intervene, and maybe we can be successful by using just only local therapy. But it is important to remember that there are no pathognomic signs of acute glaucoma, in contrast to chronic glaucoma, what makes in this case very difficult for us to make an earlier diagnosis, and especially for the owners of the animals, of the pets animals, that could not catch the early stage of glaucoma development because of the lack of external clear clinical signs. Therefore, tonometry is essential for accurate diagnosis. So the elevated intraocular pressure can cause irreversible damage to the visual potential of the eye within hours, and that's why acute glaucoma, whether primary or secondary, is an ocular emergency. Eyes with chronic glaucoma are usually irreversibly blind and uncomfortable. Blind eyes with acute glaucoma may still have potential for vision provided by intraocular pressure, which could be normalized in a timely manner, and the disease is still in its early stages. It could be emphasized that by the time an intraocular pressure has been elevated long enough, and it can cause the form of bubophthalmia that can lead to irreversible damage of the optic nerve. And also the cases that are presented, we can evaluate in the first phase just from their vision look of the presence of the big eye, what indicates that it is stages when the optic nerve is damaged and the eye is blind. So can I continue with the second presentation, and at the end of both I can be ready for the question, or I should wait for the question now?
If you want just 1 second, we will check if you have any questions. If we have, Authorities hasn't, you can continue.
Mm-hmm. So the second presentation, it's about the pharmacological. Thank you.
Actually, I couldn't see also in the chat. In that case, we can continue. And after that, if you have any question, we will give opportunity to give the. Now, if you're ready, we can continue with the next one for the pharmacology protocols.
Thank you. It is the screen shared?
Actually, no.
Okay, I'll try again.
Yeah. Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay. The second presentation is about pharmacological protocols in therapeutical treatments in vestibular syndrome in pet animals, always from the clinical point of view. So some words about, very few words about the vestibular syndrome, which it's a syndrome made by a group of clinical signs that comes from the damage of vestibular apparatus, which is the main responsibility for maintaining the body's balance, which is also assisted by integration with the visual apparatus, as we will see in the next slides, and with the general perception system. The study was carried out during the October 2019 and until the January 2020 in the collaboration with some private clinics and veterinary hospital, that it is a private one in the city of Tirana. This study was based only in 70 cases of cats and 18 cases of dogs, which were undergone the physical examination and also the clinical examination combined with a neurological one. Also, the diagnosis was based on a certain diagnosis protocol, and it was followed by general clinical and neurological examination, always accompanied in several cases with the laboratory and the radiological examination. And after that, the cases with the general vestibular syndrome were classified according to the type of vestibular syndrome in peripheric syndrome, in vestibular bilateral syndrome, in vestibular paradoxal syndrome, and respectively in dogs and cats, and which the number of the cases we're going to see in the next slides. According to the therapy, we're going to talk in details which was the focus of this therapy, the goals of this therapy, and the type of the treatment according to the underlying cause that it was located by us. So before we talk about some issues about this pathogenesis of this syndrome, we have also to emphasize that all this syndrome is caused by the damage of vestibular nerve, because the vestibular nerve that it is connected with vestibular ganglion and with cochlear nerve, which they damage leads to the function of cochlea, ampulla, and the lateral semicircular canal. All these apparatus, which is responsible for maintaining the balance in normal stages and the normal parameters, its effect, and it can be clinically associated with the head movements coordination and also with the eyes movement coordination. It depends from the fact that which part of the vestibulocochlear nerve is affected. So in the cases when it is affected the oculomotor nerve, then we clinically have a typical form of nystagmus, as you can see in the photo in the cat, and in the cases when is damage the vestibular cochlear nerve, we have also the part of head, titled head, and also the loss of the balance, which is clinically defined as ataxia. So the nystagmus can be as a medial side nystagmus, as you can see, and this comes from the affection of the locomotor nerve third, and also from the affected abducent nerve. There are cases of right side nystagmus, as you can see in the photo in the dog that is presented. Also, depend from what part of the central nervous system or peripheral nervous system is affected. Also, the vestibular syndrome is divided or classified in peripheric vestibular syndrome and in central vestibular syndrome, which are also the most difficult cases to be treated according to the reducement of the symptoms, but not according to the location of the pathology. And also there are cases, these are cases very difficult to treat to delete the underlying cause. In contrast with the peripheric vestibular syndrome, which are more easier to be treated. These are cases of head-tilted vestibular spinal tract dysfunction that are also very, very difficult. They can be caused from different factors, from traumatic factors, infective disease also could be viruses or bacterial disease that can affect the part of spinal tract and one of the major clinical signs that we can see are the clinical signs with part of keeping the balance, which is totally destroyed in some cases, in advanced cases, and they can be confused with the cases with another cases of neurological that could be cerebral ataxia, as you can see in the photo, and also with the cases of proprioceptive ataxia. Maybe they could be also the part of vestibular ataxia, but sometimes they can be confused with other neurological, pathoneurological disease. This is a video when you can see a form of vestibular syndrome when the kitten is titling only in one direction because of the trauma that was caused after its fall from the second floor of one apartment. And this is a case of cerebral hypoplasia, which can confused actually with the syndrome, vestibular syndrome, but it's not vestibular syndrome. And this is the most difficult part for us to make the diagnosis of the vestibular syndrome and our neurological disease. Horner syndrome, it's also a syndrome that associates the vestibular syndrome. It is called Horner syndrome because of the person that has discovered it in the Second War, as I remember from the literature, and it is made up by some group of clinical signs. As you can see, the protrusion of the third eyelids, the meiosis of the pupil, and also it is associated with the loss of the balance, where you can see the form of the typical syndrome, Horner syndrome caused by a trauma. It is caused by the damage of the sympathetic and parasympathetic system, by the damage of the ganglion, of one ganglion that it is responsible for the innervation of the third eyelids, for the pupil, and also that it is part of the vestibular apparatus. So the type of the vestibular syndrome that we have diagnosis are peripheral vestibular syndrome, central vestibular syndrome, bilateral vestibular syndrome, and paradoxical vestibular syndrome. But what it is important are not the distinguishment of the type of the vestibular syndrome, but are the identification of underlying causes. Such are the many of the cases from otitis, traumatic causes, many cases from injuries, accidental injuries with car, hit by car, and so on, inflammatory disease with infective disease from systemic disease, or maybe also from the local disease, and cases of neoplasma, very cases of neoplasma, the presence of polyps also, and the cases of intoxication that are very rare diagnosed and are very rarely catched by the veterinarians, and also other infective disease that affect the vestibular apparatus. And as you can see from the graphic, the most underlying cause of the vestibular syndrome are otitis in dogs and also in cats. As you can see, the same is for the dogs. I don't want to borrow more time. And also the frequency in dogs, it's almost the same, despite the cases of toxoplasmosis that were very present in cats and maybe in some kittens mostly that were diagnosed just spontaneously and not with the idea that it has a vestibular syndrome. So the goal of the treatment was that first we underlined the cause, and this is one of the goal of this mission, that it is very important to underline the cause and to identify it. And after the treatment of the cause, and here I include all the cases of otitis that were very, very frequent, especially the parts of chronic otitis or acute otitis that were treated locally in very hard way by the owners or by the other vets, and also the signs of vestibular disease that should be evaluated in collaboration with other clinical signs that could be part or could be as a consequence of this syndrome, like Horner syndrome or intoxication. In these cases, we couldn't treat the underlying cause, but we had reduced the symptoms. And in the fact that the otitis were the most underlying cause of this syndrome from the cases that we had, we were focused in its treatment. And we have used the first line of antibiotics in some cases, like neomycin, trazarderm, and Otomax, and also the second lines of antibiotics, tobramycin. We're careful, we have had with the use of amikacin because of the toxicity that it could give, especially in the cases where it was used for a long period of time in reflective otitis or chronic otitis. And also we have used third line antibiotics using miporitin and sulfidizine with silver, and also the types of orbifloxacin and so on. Antifungal agents were also taken in consideration in the cases of otitis caused by fungal causes. So the Otomax was the most frequented one, but we have had careful because of the fact that it is combined with dexamethasone, and the use of cortisonic in a local and systemic way was totally observed in a very conservative way. Also, micanozole and thiabendazole are the preparates, medical preparates that we have used. Regarding the systemic therapy of antibiotics, we have based the use of fluoroquinolones and mainly the enrofloxacin and marbofloxacin. But in the types of antifungals, in the systemic cases, when also has been affected the external part of the ear, of auricula and of the ductus, external ductus, but in these cases it hasn't been treated for a long wide period of time, and it has been aggravated, and that's why we have started with the use of ketoconazole, fluconazole, and troconazole. And also we have used in combination sometimes with prednisone and prednisolone in oral usement in systemic way, of course, but we have had very careful even in these cases. So as a conclusion, we have to emphasize that the clinical localization of a lesion of central vestibular structure or peripheral is very important, not only for the formulation of a protocol study, but above all also for the determination of the prognosis, which in case of peripheral forms are generally more favorable, meanwhile in central forms are more reserved. While nystagmus can orient to determine the level of peripheral and central vestibular syndrome, thus in pathologies, peripheral vestibular nystagmus is in horizontal shape and rotational, whereas in vestibular pathologies, central nystagmus is vertical and in many cases it has different many directions. Appearance of paresis or loss of conscience in ataxia animal vestibular is one of the most important indicators of localization of the lesion in the cerebral trunk. And in the case of diagnostic otitis media, it is necessary to pursue a prolonged antibiotic therapy, while in the case of polypus must be removed absolutely with surgery. Also, in the cases that are very difficult and are chronic, we can use the anti-inflammatory drugs, different combination with anti-inflammatory drugs, with the use of prednisone and prednisolone, and also, we can make the combination with the topical aminoglycosides because we have to consider the fact of ototoxicity, and especially in the cases when the veterinarians use for a long time one type of antibiotics like is amikacin, and when we use for a long time prednisolone, that we have to consider the brainstem auditory, which could be very, very sensitive from these drugs. Also, otic products that contain beta-metazone, which is Otomax, and dexamethasone are usefully effective, but it can be absorbed systemically and cause adrenal suppression with long-term use, so they should be used very, very cautiously. And in one study, a more potent yet soft glucocorticoid, mometazone, to bring this example, is that it has shown no adrenal suppression after 1 week of therapy. So we have to consider the time of the use of these excellent drugs in hiding the symptoms, but very, very risky drugs in giving the consequence after treatment of one cause. So we should be very careful. And in the cases of allergic otitis, external long-term topical glucocorticoids may be required with careful monitoring for adrenal suppression also, and or local side effects such as pain, hair loss, and so on. Fluoroquinolones may be prescribed when Pseudomonas species, other relevant gram-negative organisms, or very resistant gram-positive bacteria are isolated and suspectability is confirmed after the culture was done. Higher doses than usually recommended may be needed, but even here we should be very careful. Also, ciprofloxacin should be avoided in dogs because oral absorption is inconsistent, and it is potentially leading to inefficacy and bacterial resistance as well, that we should take in consideration in this kind of treatments. So thank you for your attention. If there are some questions, even it was from the clinical point of view, we should consider the fact that all clinical breakpoints leads to detailed and very specified microbiological analysis and pharmaceutical analysis.
Thank you very much for presentations. I mean, in the presentation about the glaucoma and this one for the vestibular syndrome. This was very interesting, especially for me. Now, let's see in the chat or in our auditorium if they have any question. Actually, at that moment, no. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, dear colleagues, we'll turn back to the second and third presentation. If our colleagues in here, as Sam Soliman, is it here?
Dear Dr. Atanasov,
Yes.
Soliman has write to us. He will be not available
Okay.
due to some health issues.
Okay. In that case, I will call our colleagues Chafa Meryem.
She is also not available. We have contacted her.
Okay. And in that case, we'll finish with the presentation for today. Is mine correct?
Yes, thank you
Okay.
very much, Dr. Atanasov. It was very nice that we have done something together. Thank you very much for your contribution. And dear Professor Erinda Lika, thank you very much again for presentations, also for the opening speeches, for your contribution. Thank you very much again. And thank you very much for all participants. It is valuable with your presence here. And today we are closing the session, and tomorrow morning we will continue at 9 a.m. Turkish local time.
One last words about from me. Finally, I wish all participants in this meeting and of course in the organizer productive work and further success in carrying the planet and the walls. And I hope next year, when is the third edition of this Congress, we will be not online, in live, and see each other.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation, Professor Lash, and I hope to see you as soon as possible.
Yeah, we will see each other soon. Thank you very much for everybody. See you. Ciao.